Again, as you join, please remember, including PBC team, please put your information in the chat. That would be helpful. We are here today for the PM at Risk services for AIS. We're going to give it a couple more seconds so we can let people join. Remember, if you are on a cell phone or a iPad, you want to make sure that you're on mute. Can the team make sure that they're letting folks in, please? Okay, we have a couple more people. Please remember to put your name and company. We're going to take attendance that way in the chat. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Today is February 16th. We are here for the pre-submission conference for the construction management at risk for AIS and capital improvement projects. So thank you again for attending. This video is streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. If you miss all the excitement, you can also watch the video on the current opportunities page. We will post it by tomorrow at the latest. Again, if you have questions, and please put them in the chat. Also, make sure you put your name and company in the chat as well. We have a brief agenda, but we have a lot of topics to go over today. We're going to do introductions, of course. We're going to talk about the timelines and the requirements for the RFP. We're going to talk about the evaluation criteria, and then we're going to go over the 4 projects that we have in this packet, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. Again, if you have questions while we're presenting, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we go through them. I never said my name. I am Lori Lipson with the PBC, and I have my trusty right hand, Patty, who is the contract officer. So we will be doing some things in the background, and I'm going to turn it over to Ray to introduce his team.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Ray Gitterath. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the Public Building Commission. My staff is on the call.
Ray, your audio is really muffled.
Is that better, Lori?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me start again. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Lori, thank you for scheduling the pre-submission conference. My name is Ray Gitterath. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the Public Building Commission. I'll let my staff introduce themselves. We'll start with Beth Scanlon, our Deputy Managing Architect.
Good morning. This is Beth Scanlon.
Okay. We have our project managers on the call. Michael Powell.
Good morning. This is Mike Powell.
Michael, we can't see you. John, if you can introduce yourself. John, you're on mute.
Good morning. My name is, excuse me. Good morning. My name is John Leonard.
Thank you, John. Dennis, if you can introduce yourself.
Good morning, Dennis Joplin.
All right, Dennis, we can't see you. If you can turn your camera on. Our other manager, Desmond Truitt, he's scheduled to be off today, but he will be one of our other managers on this project. Lori, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I will introduce some of the GCs and CMs and DB teams that I know about in the chat later, but I'm going to go ahead and go into what we're here for today. We are excited about some of the upcoming projects that are coming in. We have decided the procurement method for these particular 4 projects are CM at risk. And part of that, again, just as a friendly reminder to separate it from design, bid, build, and JOC would be that we have our AOR and EOR already on board. And this CM will be working together on a couple of things. The CM will be responsible for pre-construction services, project management, planning, change management, document management, possible acquisition of furniture, fixture, and equipment, drawings, warranties, commissioning, closeout, and each project, once Ray's team starts to go in, will have a different requirements, of course. But again, part of why we want to use CM for these projects, because we want the team to be flexible. We want to be able to pivot when we have to. We might talk about value engineering, estimating, all those things that a CM would do. And so we are looking for a partner that would be able to do that for us. One of the key things that we are most excited about, and I know some of our previous CMs are the trade and contract award and management. One of the prominent things that you'll see in the RFP is your approach to this very important aspect of being a CM, which is to manage the bid and award with the PBC. You're going to collaborate with the AOR or EOR for the bid package. You're also going to schedule public bid announcement, different from, again, DB and design bid build. We're going to make sure we do scope reviews together. You're going to strategize to maximize M and WBE. And you're also going to make sure that you achieve all the EEO requirements as well. And so that is one of the key things I want the teams to look at. And this is one of the key factors that we're looking into the evaluation criteria that sets yourself apart. I'm going to turn it over to Patty, who's going to go over some of the procurement details and instructions.
Good morning. My name is Patricia Montenegro. As Lori mentioned, I'm the Deputy Director of Procurement for the Public Building Commission of Chicago. And so we'll go over a few procurement details, beginning with the availability of the document. The document can be found on our website, ppcchicago.com, under Current Opportunities page. The solicitation document, along with the forms, exhibits, and attachments, are all found on that page. Request for information, please ensure that you submit all requests for information to my attention at patricia.montenegro@cityofchicago.org. And we have not issued any addenda to date, but addendas could also be found on that page. The current timeline, the RFP was issued on February 2nd. And I have to move this little, okay, I'm sorry. Pre-submission conference is today. The site visit is currently scheduled for tomorrow at 9:30. Lori will have a little bit more detail on that in just a bit. The questions deadline is Friday, March 11th at 4 p.m. And submissions are due on Tuesday, March 22nd at 11 a.m. Interviews are scheduled for the week of March 28th through April 1st. And then we're submitting our recommendation to the PBC board at the PBC Board of Commissioners meeting in April of this year. All right, Lori, did you want to?
Thank you, everyone. I know we sent out an alert. Hopefully everyone received it yesterday. But based on the weather, we may change our site visit date. So please make sure you look and keep abreast of our alerts. We will send one out. There is a winter wind advisory currently and a winter storm. So more likely than not, we will reschedule. So we want to make sure that everyone's safe. However, with that being said, when we do meet, Make sure you look at the parking, where we're going to meet, because there's 2 locations that we're going to. So again, keep an eye out on that. As the weather is updated, we will update you as well. So just keep a keen eye on that.
Okay. Oh, and I just wanted to make mention, Lori, if you could go back, that there will be a time slated for the first location, and then we will move on to the second location once the site visit for the first location is concluded. So there's no specific time for the second one, well, provided that we're scheduled both on that day. But just wanted to make note of that. There's no specific time for the second. We will conclude the first one and then move over to the second one together. Also on our website and as an exhibit to the RFP, we have a list of the PPC assist agencies, and they're available for any information that you might have or any questions that you might have as well. Submission requirements, we are requesting only 1 electronic copy of the submission. No hard copy submissions this time around, so only 1 electronic copy, a single searchable PDF of your entire submission. You know, we understand that copies of licenses and such are not, you know, searchable, but the remaining portion of your PDF document should be searchable. We're going to ask that when you submit your email, you address it as such, the response to the RFP for CMAR services for the AIS capital improvement projects, and that you also label your PDF file as such. PPC is very heavy on file naming conventions, so you can begin like with the file naming conventions. Email to patricia.montenegro@cityofchicago.org, and please include your financial statements in this electronic submission. And we want to ensure that you organize the submission in the checklist order. And Lori, yeah. So the checklist is also found in the RFP document, and we've identified where each item should go. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. I'm going to just go over a couple of highlights before we dig into the individual projects. Make sure, because as you know, we have another solicitation on the street, that you want to follow the directions for this one. Make sure that you include that contact page for your submission. You want to make sure you have your cover letter that says how great and awesome your team is. You want to include your table of contents, of course. I'm going to go through some of the things for the forms and exhibits that I think you should take note of. Based on the chat, the amount of attendees, we are pretty sure that everyone is able to do the job. We want to talk about what sets you apart. The first thing that will set you apart, you're going to fill out this Form A, which is your technical competence and past performance. Part of that, you want to remember that you're going to submit projects that have been in the last 5 years. You're going to submit 3 projects. You want to make sure you have your scope, schedule, budget, maybe how you value engineered, what are some risk mitigations you've done, maybe some COVID strategies you have learned, some trade procurements that you were successful in. This is where kind of the A team and the B team will come about. You want to really make sure that you are setting yourself apart. Make sure that you fill in the form. Again, these are all renovation projects. So my suggestion would to be submit some that are renovation based projects. Again, make sure you fill out both pages of the form. And we want to know the details listed here. The other thing that's going to set you apart is your key staff. Make sure that you are submitting those resumes / bios, your organizational chart, your licenses, your general contractor's license, your City of Chicago license, anything that's pertinent that would be help your team be successful. Again, we have worked with many of you on the line. You want to make sure that we're getting your A team. You know what kind of questions Ray and I will ask you during the interview process. Be prepared for that. And again, you want to make sure that your organizational chart and your key staff match up. Even though this procurement is on the street a little longer than we typically have, we are using that time to interview, and we want to make sure the right people are there for the interview as well as part of your submission. You're going to make sure that you sign. Again, Patty said so far there's not any addenda, but we might have the first one out with the site visit change. You're going to make sure you sign that. The other big piece that I talked about earlier was the project approach. You want to talk about how you plan on doing your pre-construction services, what that entails, what your bidding and procurement strategies are, what are your cost controls, change management, value engineering, what kind of software are you going to use, what kind of outreach tools do you have. That's part of your project approach that you want to include. Your Form C is self-explanatory. You're going to fill out your past performance for MBE and WBE, along with your workforce participation. Please make sure you do not have the wrong information here. Many of you have been successful or not successful on this simple thing. We have, especially when you use the PBC projects, we actually have the actual numbers. Please make sure that you follow that accordingly. For this procurement, this is going to be a MBE and WBE combined goal of 26%. Make sure that you have that in the back of your mind and talk about for your strategy. Again, we'll have city residents for 50%, and we have attached the community hiring map, which I will show you shortly. Many of you will have a new community intake process. We have 2 new partners, and we're have pivoted a little bit because of COVID. So we will have some intakes, but it'll look a little different. Your solicitation did not include this map, but this is the community area that we will have. So it will be all the way from the near south side until you see Gage Park, Archer Heights, Brighton Park, South Lawndale, New Silly Fuller Park, McKinley, Bridgeport, Grand Boulevard, Lower West Side, Armour Square, and Douglas. So there's plenty of area for you to cover because we have 4 projects. So this is the map. Again, it was not in the RFP. It will be in this slide deck that you will have available. And I want to be clear on this, we had a little confusion on the last one, so I want to be clear. These are the goals. There is award criteria, meaning that PBC will set as we move forward in the procurement process, your award criteria. These numbers are placeholders for those sections, meaning that at the end, if you have female journey worker, let's say is at 3%, but you have laborers at 1%, these numbers are interchangeable. However, they are part of your contract. So if you have additional questions, we'll talk a little bit more about that during our site visit. But there is minority journey worker, apprentice, and laborers, female journey workers, apprentice, laborers expected for these 4 projects. I think there's going to be some joint ventures formed for this project. Please note, if you are thinking about that, you're going to fill out a Schedule B, even though it's Form D, which is a little confusing. You're going to fill out this joint venture affidavit. You're also going to include the agreement so we can look at it. We will be asking some of those questions to see which joint venture partner is responsible for which aspect of the project as we move forward. You're going to make sure that you fill out all the forms, E, F, and G, disclosure affidavit, disclosure of retained parties, affidavit of non-collusion as well. And this little fancy icon we found is for notary. Make sure you get it stamped. The one thing you will notice is obviously this is a RFP and we don't know the anticipated cost yet, but we're going to make sure that you have the insurance to cover this type of work. We put in Exhibit B so you can see the payment and performance bond that will be needed later, obviously once the costs are determined, but make sure that you include your COI and make sure that you include your bonding capacity letter. Safety is key. You're going to make sure that you fill out your safety information. The one thing that has been different is that we're going to include your COVID-19 protocol. So make sure when you're filling this form out that your safety strategy, all your EMR numbers are correct, but you also want to spend a little bit of time on your COVID-19 strategy. Again, do not forget your QA/QC plan that is going to be included as part of your submission, including a sample project schedule. My suggestion is don't submit a schedule that does not make sense as your sample. Make sure that it's a schedule that the logic is appropriate. You're going to fill out your legal actions. Make sure you fill it out completely and totally. We are trying to make very fast appointments. So make sure that you fill this out accordingly so we don't have to go back and forth. Your references are to be included. You are to have 3 of them. Make sure you do not include folks who are currently at the PBC. Please do not use me, Ray, Beth, Patty, for example, any of those people for references. One of the most important things that we want to know as part of your evaluation is you're going to fill out the cost form. The only thing, again, that you're going to fill out for this cost form is your fee. You're going to sign and date it. All of the rest, as folks know, we will determine later and talk about that once we get through the project. Again, you're going to make sure that you fill out your fee for all 4 of the projects. Our intention is we're going to look at this holistically. They are 4 separate projects. Maybe your team will strategize and say, hey, if we get all 4 projects, our fee will be, I don't know, 0.25%. If I get 2 projects, it's going to be 1%. So think about some of that strategy. But again, you're just going to fill out, the reason it's blocked is because you're only to fill out the fee and your signature and date. Do not forget to include your financial statement. That's part of the evaluation criteria as well, so we can go over that. Again, I just want to show how much the top portion of that technical, your resumes, your approach, your price, your MBE contribution to the RFP solicitation is important. These are going to set it apart. Most people who are in the around for our school projects were unsuccessful just based on 1 or 2 points of the evaluation team. So please make sure you take an emphasis on that. Again, Patty is your sole point of contact for this procurement. You are not to reach out to our AIS partners. You are not to reach out to our development team. This is a current procurement and it would be inappropriate for you to do so. And if you are doing that, your submission may be deemed non-responsive. So I am going to turn it over to Ray. We're going to go over the projects themselves, the 4 projects, the status, the schedule, and the cost. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray.
Thank you, Lori. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. If you can go back to the previous slide, Lori. Thank you. So before I get started, I really wanted to thank all of our partners that have helped us get to this point. First and foremost, Commissioner Reynolds, Deputy Commissioner Robin Owens, their management staff, Francis and Anthony. Wanted to thank you, especially for the opportunity to work with you and AIS on this important program. Like Lori stated earlier, these are renovation projects. In this case, for these projects that we're going to review today, it's really about protecting the city's assets and providing those upgrades, enhancements, and renovation work required in order for AIS to be able to properly use the buildings for their intended use. Separately, we have 2 incredible architects that have been working with us all along, in Paul Harding and James Moe from Mode and Harding. So wanted to thank them as well. As Lori stated early on, currently we're scheduled to conduct these walkthroughs tomorrow. So please make sure that the proper PPE that you have the proper PPE for these walkthroughs, because if you don't, you won't be allowed to walk the buildings with us. So I'll dive into where we are right now. So generally, with regard to the overview, as Lori stated, these are 3 buildings in terms of the Pershing Road buildings located at West Pershing Road from 1819, 1769, and 1869. West Pershing Road is exactly where one of these projects will be located, and the other is the Juvenile Intervention and Support Center. We attempted to group these projects together, as Lori stated, so that there's some economies of scale, of course, with regard to proximity, geography, type of work, and value. That's important to us. And I did notice that in the chat, several partners that have worked with us before and delivering other important work for other clients are on the call with us. And I wanted everyone to know the level of confidence that we have in this approach and the program. We did think through it in detail. We discussed the procurement approach and strategy with our client, the architects, all of staff that's involved. We absolutely are incorporating best practices, lessons learned in project delivery and managing this type of work under the CM at risk model. And Lori mentioned more than one time the word collaboration. That's sort of the biggest thing that we can emphasize here is really the CM's role in that collaborative effort, whether that be design assist, recommendations for constructability matters, schedule, timing, phasing, permitting packages, bid packages, all of those elements that are going to set you apart from your competitors. Lori mentioned that already, and I just wanted to reemphasize how important it is that when your team, first of all, it's vitally important that you attend these walkthroughs because there's just so much that our staff is going to be able to review with you on a screen for an hour or so. And the pictures are important, the narrative is important, the description of scope is important, but really understanding the logistics, the constraints, the as-built conditions, and those elements that we're going to be looking for the CM to take the lead with us and assist our architects, both of our architects, in finalizing contract documents for the purposes of procuring subs. So I can't emphasize that enough. So that's the general overview, and Beth Scanlon, my deputy managing architect, will review the project description sheets that were included in the RFP. From that point, our project managers will run through the scope of work descriptions. And then with regard to current status, we are through the assessment and planning phases. The architects are preparing contract documents, but clearly it's at a point where this is the right time to bring the construction manager on board to help the team, as part of one team, collaborate, finalize program, confirm scope, verify cost, update project budget, and then start that procurement process. So with regard to the schedule issues that are going to be discussed, you notice in the project description sheets, we've listed them by quarter. We absolutely anticipate and are going to require that the work will be phased by type of work, by area, by use, by priority. It's all of those things that we want the CM to have. We want to empower the CM to work with our team to develop a phased sort of approach to when we start, what we start on, how it gets permitted, what subcontractors are being procured, and what areas of the work are being turned over, possibly out of other areas. And you'll notice that during the walkthrough, especially for the Pershing Road buildings, as it states here, between the three of them, it's almost 2 million square feet of space between all three and the tunnel associated with the West building. And then as it relates to the anticipated cost of construction that Beth is going to briefly review, these are placeholder budgets that were developed by the team. The placeholder budgets are exactly that. It's a placeholder budget developed for the purposes of budgeting, not for the purposes of confirming costs, verifying costs, understanding subcontractor costs. It's not that. These are placeholder budgets developed in anticipation of what the program and scope elements may include. Generally, Beth will describe the program and the scope. You'll notice in some cases that the estimates that are part of a building are less than the stated placeholder budget, but that's not an accident. That's based on the scope for that specific building that Beth is going to talk about, compared to the placeholder budget. And then our construction manager with our architects and our partners side by side, we verify program scope and cost elements. With that, Lori, I'm going to turn it over to Beth, and we are absolutely excited to get moving on these projects and the rest of the program that Lori alluded to. So with that, Beth, I'll turn it over to you. If you wouldn't mind going through the project descriptions, Beth will do that, and then she'll hand it over to Michael Powell, responsible for the Pershing Road buildings, and we'll get into the details. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry, I forgot the mute button. Good morning. This is Beth Scanlon, and I want to give you a brief overview of each one of the projects that we're talking about. The first one here is the East Building of the group of the Pershing Road buildings. This complex was built in the 1920s as warehouse buildings. They are masonry construction and are over 80 feet tall, so they are considered high-rise buildings. The exterior envelope work is a project that is ongoing simultaneously and is not included as part of this scope, but it will require coordination with the exteriors. The East Building is about 630,000 square feet, and that's encompassed in 6 floors and the basement. As I said, they are masonry buildings. They are connected to each other via overhead bridges as well as a tunnel system underneath the ground. This first building is an unoccupied building, and the intent of this project is to upgrade the systems inside simply to have it be a code designation of vacant. We're mothballing this building. So we're only doing scope as necessary to have it qualify as a vacant building by code. Mike, why don't you get into more of the specifics of what the scope of the work is?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Mike Powell. I'm a project manager with the PBC. As Beth said, this building is due to be deemed as a vacant building. Basically, the scope includes, but as we state, it's not limited to, we're just removing existing debris and a lot of the selective demolition, some minimal structural repairs, securing the inactive elevators. I think there's approximately 3 to 4 inactive elevators, so we'll secure those. and fire life safety, such as exiting and signage, communication, separations, and different wayfinders will be included. I'm sorry, not the wayfinders. Ventilation, louvers, cap plumbing, and minimum lighting, security, and there will be no sprinklers allowed for this building. So some of the project considerations is that we talked about having a building as permitting standard plan review. Environmentally, we actually are out there on site today, so there'll be some ACM and some lead-based paint abatement work included, in coordination with other ongoing construction projects. As stated before, most of that is exterior and roofing work, roofing and brickwork. And in project phasing, we'll do that as required once we collaborate and get together and develop that. The proposed project schedule for the construction documents is Q2 22. Permitting for this project would be Q3 2022, as we said, would be standard plan review. And substantial completion is anticipated for Q4 2022.
Next slide.
So this is just a footprint as well as a basic typical footprint of the building. You can see it's a pretty large building. The pictures on the slide on the side just gives you an example of some of the damage done and some of the existing conditions to the building, some of the things that you'll have to deal with as far as clearing the building out and some of the work that's required. It's pretty typical, but for the most part, there's a few slides and a few things that maybe some additional photos, and you'll see it during the walkthrough tomorrow. But for the most part, this is what you'll be facing.
Okay, as Ray was saying, we have included estimates within the package that you have received for each one of these buildings. In this case, the cost estimate is less than the placeholder budget for the project. Where you have access to this information, as you can see, because it is simply becoming a vacant building and it is a minimal scope of work, the cost of work estimate here is significantly less than what would be included within the placeholder budget. All right, the next building in the group is the center building of the Pershing Road. Again, it is a masonry high-rise building built in the 1920s, part of the same complex. This one is attached on either side to the east building and to the west building via bridges and tunnels. There is exterior work going on in this building as well, again, as a separate project. This building, however, is occupied. It is considered primarily storage use. It has several city agencies and sister agencies that are using this space. Primarily the Board of Elections uses this as a staging area as well as storage. Again, the intent of this project is to bring this building up to minimum code standards. We are looking at life safety issues as well as ventilation, plumbing issues. Those are items to bring it up to a minimum standard of code. We also will possibly be looking at trying to upgrade as core and shell for the Board of Elections. Part of this is where the CM will be coming into play to be looking at the possible scope and budget considerations and reconciliation of the two for this project as it moves forward. Mike?
Yeah, so the scope of work in this building is a little more extensive. We're not mothballing the building, but we are bringing up to code, as Beth said, with life safety and addition of sprinklers, alarm systems, communication, standpipes, and some minimum outletting. There's walls and things like that in areas that will provide fire separation, existing signage, new doors, hardware, railings, and guards, as well as lighting, HVAC, and different system controls. In this guy, we're going to replacement as well as upgrades to the freight elevators and new toilet rooms and upgrades to meet code as well. And possibly the core and shell, if I'm not mistaken, it'll just be the core. The shell is being done by exterior by another contractor, but there will be core and shell work done on the site. The considerations for this, again, would be the standard plan review. Again, environmental and ACM and lead-based abatement. Again, we're out there today. Coordination with the BOE and coordination with ongoing construction that's currently been done. There's 1 second. So here you have just a typical floor plan, and the red, the lines, the red, green, and yellow lines just show it, the egress. Trying to get my screen back. All right, hold 1 second. Okay, so these guys are just means of egress. The red lines here, the yellow, and as well as the green. But this is a typical plan and footprint of the building. It's, all 6 floors are basically the same.
And again, we have provided the cost estimates for the scope of work intended. In this case, the initial cost estimate is indicating it is above the placeholder budget, and we will need to be working with both the AIS and the Harding Mode, our architects joint venture, as well as the CM to work through the costs and scope to confirm what will actually be included within this project. Again, the intent is to bring this building up to a minimum code level, and with the hope of getting some core and shell scope completed as well for the Board of Elections. The third building in this complex, the West Building at 1869 West Pershing, is again connected to the center building with tunnel and bridges, but it is also connected to a fire station building that is to the south of this building. So this is connected in 2 different directions. The building again is a 1920s masonry high-rise building. This one is occupied, and several of the floors here have previously been built out for the user occupancy as offices, storage areas, workshops, etc. The work in this building is primarily on the 5th and 6th floor. Those floors need to be brought up to minimum code levels, including the installation of a sprinkler system. And again, the phasing around this project, this is an occupied building, and so that needs to be considered as the work is moving forward. And I guess the other point I would like to bring up here is that this West Building, the scope is also going to include the tunnel work, and we'll get into an explanation of what the tunnel work is after we specifically talk about the work in this building. Mike, go ahead.
So as Beth said, the building is currently occupied, and the scope is limited. This includes but not limited to, again, much of life safety in the systems, life safety systems such as sprinklers, communications and separations. But we also in this building have a lot of rails, guardrails, doors, and hardware. And I think a lot of it's in the stairwell too. Elevator upgrades, not sure if it just be upgrades or new elevators, but for right now, elevator upgrades and a possible core and shell upgrade to the 5th and 6th floor. So again, this project is a standard plan review. All 3 buildings we're dealing with environmental conditions with the ACM and lead-based paint. And again, we'll have to consider coordination with the ongoing trades on site and subcontractors on site that's performing the exterior work. So we'll phase this work as required at the meeting and things get together. And the anticipated schedule is as follows, with the construction documents being the Q3 2022, and the permitting of Q3 of 2022, and the anticipated substantial completion of Q4 2022 as well. Floor plan of each of these buildings, for the most part, is standard floor plans, typical floor plans, just a matter of where the functions are and things like that, some of the existing activities going on in the building. So this is just showing the travel distance and things like that for the red and the green lines, just showing a different travel distance from the elevators or the stairwells and egress means of egress to the building. But again, the floor plans, the floor plate for the most part is very similar and typical throughout the building. The pictures, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I'm just touching on the pictures as we talked about in the other slides. These pictures just give you an indication of actually some of the existing conditions. You see in some of these floors, there's more work and debris and things like that than others. And then there's other floors that's a little more damaged than others. So during the walkthrough, we'll be able to determine what's what and how to perform the work accordingly. But these pictures are just giving you an example of what's going on in the West Building.
Again, we've got an estimate for the scope of work for this project, and we will depend upon the construction manager for reconciliation of this scope with the budget as we are moving forward. I did want to highlight that for these three projects are all being developed by the Harding Mode joint venture for these three projects. We have got assessments that have been completed for each of these buildings. And as we go to the next slide, please. The next scope that we want to discuss is the tunnel work. What's highlighted here is the locations of these tunnels. You can see there's the three buildings that are connected with there's a bridge location towards the front of each of the buildings. And then there is this tunnel location that connects in the middle of each building, as well as utility tunnel that runs all along the south edge of the three buildings, connecting the three buildings. It was originally used to provide steam heating from one building to the other. These tunnels are in bad shape and are currently have scaffolding in them. As a separate scope within the West project, the West Buildings project, we have a separate milestone for the completion of this tunnel. And the intention is to relocate the utilities as necessary and then fill the tunnel with flowable fill so that we can secure these tunnels and not have them become any kind of a hazard. Next slide. Mike?
So yeah, so the scope of work with the tunnel, as Beth said, we're just trying to fill the tunnels up with flowable fill, but it includes the construction of isolating walls and relocating some of the utilities, whether it be gas, steam, or electric. Again, the abandoned tunnels will be filled with flowable fill, and we're repairing the connecting tunnels and build fire separations. The considerations are the same as the others with the standard plan review and the environmental concerns, as well as the construction that with staging and logistics and things like that with the ongoing construction to the projects that currently exist. The adjacent occupancies and the project phasing will be as required. The construction documents for this particular anticipated schedule for this particular scope would be Q1 2022, permitting is Q2 for 2022, and the tunnel work completion would be Q3 2022.
As you can see, and as Mike just mentioned, we have completed drawings for this tunnel work. It is ready to go. So, and in that regard, it is also has a earlier milestone date for completion for this project. This is important to move this project forward and get it completed as quickly as possible. Next slide. We have a cost estimate for this scope, and similar to the rest, we will need to have the construction manager in to help us reconcile this budget. The next project is not within this complex, but it is within the same community area. The Juvenile Intervention and Support Center is a separate structure. It is a 3-story masonry building that was originally built as a fire station. It is now operated by the police as a 24-hour facility. And we are looking to do some upgrades to this building to support the police function at this center. The engineer of record for this is HOH Group, and they have completed the assessment of the building as well as are currently in the process of producing the construction documents for the scope of work to do the upgrades on this building. Mike?
So the scope included in this work is roofing and exterior masonry repairs, the water infiltration and damage repairs, overhead and exterior, new overhead and exterior doors, toilet room upgrades, interior finish, and HVAC work. The considerations are the standard plan review. Again, the occupants building will be, the building will be in use during construction. And again, we still have ACM and lead-based paint abatement to consider. And this project will also be phased as required. So the anticipated schedule for this project will Q1 2022. Permitting would be Q2 2022. And again, the substantial completion would be Q4 2022 for this project.
Jean, I know you're on the call. Would you like to go through the plans that we currently have for this project? Jean is the project manager.
Morning, everyone. How you doing? My name is John Leonard, project manager with the PBC. Just to give you a brief overview of this plan right here. This is the first floor plan. It entails some miscellaneous interior finish work, toilet upgrades. The toilet rooms in this particular area is typical all the way up to the 3rd floor. Lori, next slide. This is the 3rd floor. There's about 6,000 square feet of space. All the space is not completely utilized. There is some toilet upgrades and hallway finish, interior finish that needs to be done in here. Lori, next slide. And this is the roof, where there is some mechanical upgrades and a new roofing system to be installed in this area. So back to you, Lori.
Okay, again, we have a cost estimate for this project, and it is a similar concept. There is a placeholder budget that has been assigned to the project, and we have then a cost estimate that is reflection of the scope of work that has been included in the construction documents as a result of the assessment that was completed.
Okay. We want to make sure that everyone is signed up for PBC alerts As I stated earlier, based on the weather conditions, it will likely be rescheduled. We have at the peak around 70 people. We haven't had all of their names in the chat. Make sure you include that. Two things I want to talk about, and then I will get to the questions that we have as well, is that Patty, again, is the sole point of contact. Inappropriate for you to reach out to anyone from a development team or AIS. You want to make sure that you are in compliance during this procurement process. The next thing I do want to talk about and open it up for the team is to really talk about the procurement and how we're packaging things. So for those who are on our alerts, obviously you are aware of this procurement. We have another one that is fast and close behind. The RFP is the exact same, except for 4 different projects. So if you're thinking about different team members, the forms are the same. So if you are interested in both, we try to make it easier for you to submit to both of them. Our intention, I know, I think it was Matt had a question in the chat about how we intend to award these projects. Our intent, based on what Ray said earlier and what I talked about previously, is that our goal is to probably package this as one for one CM. However, we are really looking at cost, strategy, and some other mechanism to ensure that we have the appropriate team. So again, we have flexibility to get multiple CMs for this particular package. And once we go view it, you'll see why that we'll probably get some efficiencies with one. But we also have the option. So just keep that in mind. And so that was the first question from Matt. The second question, I'll probably turn it on to Ray. Is the PBC contracting separately for asbestos contractors on all of these projects?
Thank you, Lori. The answer is no. The CM will be responsible for procuring the environmental subcontractor that's going to be performing abatement work.
Okay. I am going to, while folks are still trying to figure out where their chat button is, read off some of the firms that I have as part of the introduction so people could start thinking about things. John Burns, All Masonry, Passion, BOA, Henry Brothers, Ray's Group, Bolt, Discoto, Spantech, IHC, OVC, Berglund, Berlin Brothers, Blenderman, Wash, RM Chin. I know there's folks, our team, of course, SQN, Mode Architects. If I'm missing anyone, unmute yourself because we might not have caught you. I know we have GSG as well. Your name may not be in the chat. Did I miss any potential CMs? Okay. Are there any questions on these 4 projects or next steps? If not, one thing I do want to remind people is that we do have slated for interviews. The interviews will probably be an hour and a half to 2 hours. We are expecting that during the interview that there is a decision maker at that meeting, because if we need to make decisions there during the interview, we expect them to be done at that time. So make sure when and if you get a call to come in and interview virtually, make sure that you have a decision maker. If you're not having have that opportunity, we may not pick you as a CM because we want to make decisions on that day. So please make sure when Patty reaches out that they are available at that time and date. Are there any last questions, concerns, issues? Okay. Well, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will this
Jennifer, what firm are you with?
CKO,
Okay.
will this PowerPoint be available online in some way, shape, or form?
Yes, the video and the PowerPoint will be on the current opportunities page, and it will be uploaded by tomorrow, the latest. Any other questions? Okay, again, you can choose to joint venture for this RFP, do separate for the next RFP. You have a lot of choices. Make sure that you avail yourself to all those opportunities. And we look forward to receiving your submission on March 22nd. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.